The End Is Nigh is another game from the messed up mind of Edmund McMillen himself. If you're on my channel and you haven't heard of that name before, I'd be pretty shocked since he's responsible for one of my favorite games of all time, The Binding of Isaac. Before that, his claim to fame was Super Meat Boy, and before that, he created dozens of weird, disgusting, and experimental games over on Armor Games and Newgrounds. While it would be interesting to dive into Edmund's history of game development and investigate exactly why it seems he is now producing success after success, this video is mostly to talk about his newest game, The End Is Nigh. The End Is Nigh is a tough-as-nails puzzle platformer where the world has ended and your goal is to put together a friend. Yeah, you heard me right. Your goal is literally to go out into the world, find pieces of friend, and then put them together so you don't have to suffer the post-destruction of Earth on your own. It's a simple story, but for a game like this, that's all you really need. The event that sets this story off is strangely meta, too. The main character decides that he's gonna live stream a tough-as-nails puzzle platformer. Sound familiar? So when I and many other YouTubers and live streamers decided to sit down and play The End Is Nigh for the first time, we were live streaming ourselves playing a game about a character live streaming himself playing a game. You lost yet? If you are, don't worry, that's about as complex as it gets. But what exactly is The End Is Nigh as a game itself? If you've played or seen Super Meat Boy before, then you might think, hey, what gives? Did Edmund create a clone of his own game? And for that, I wouldn't necessarily blame you. On the surface, the games look remarkably similar. Both characters squish when they jump, both can cling to walls, both approach masochistic levels of difficulty, and both allow lightning-fast restarts if you die, and both are surprisingly violent or horrifying for their otherwise cute facades. But if you actually sit down and play them both, especially in such close proximity to each other like I was forced to by one of my patrons, Mig, it's easy to see and feel exactly where these differences are. I'll go over The End Is Nigh in a little more detail, but I won't be comparing it directly to Super Meat Boy. If you've played Super Meat Boy yourself and you know the game, hopefully you'll be able to make these comparisons yourself. Gameplay in The End Is Nigh takes place in clearly delineated levels. These levels are all exactly one screen in size, and while the level of zoom that each screen employs can and will change, you will never find a level that scrolls horizontally or vertically. Every level is its own self-contained challenge, allowing you to take in the entirety of that challenge as soon as you enter. The game is even kind enough to allow you to restart from the point where you entered the level if you die. And every time you do die, everything on the screen immediately resets to what it was when you first entered that screen. There is absolutely no RNG in this game at all. If you enter a level, that level will always behave the same as long as you do the same things. It's all completely predictable and allows you to practice, learn, and conquer in a very satisfying feedback loop. And you will be dying a lot. Trust me. But in a game like this, where each challenge is right there in your face, unobstructed and daring your interaction, where each death means you can try again and you can rest assured that everything will be the same every time, it's easy to push yourself to keep trying and keep mastering the exact sequence that you need to get through a room quickly. And it feels good when you finally accomplish it. Levels also have a collectible on them called a tumor that you can collect if you so desire. As for how to accomplish every level, our little gooey blob man is named Ash, and Ash has some very responsive movement. With a very high degree of air control and the ability to control your jump height very precisely, you feel in complete control almost all the time. Ash can cling to corners and hooks jutting out of the wall as a means of climbing vertically, and from these hooks, he is able to launch himself horizontally to cover some distance, and with enough force to break some blocks. He's also capable of cutting his vertical movement short at any moment with a fast fall option, which is worth mastering if you want to conquer some of the more difficult screens in this game. As for movement options, that's it. There's no sliding or crazy momentum you have to deal with. There's no sprint button, no ducking, just raw, pure control and fine motor skills. What all that amounts to is an incredibly fun platforming experience if you're the kind of person who enjoys these difficult challenges like I do. And the quick turnaround time on death and retry makes it easy to get stubborn if you feel like you're actually getting better every time you die. One of my friends, while watching me play, mentioned offhand that he didn't think he'd be able to handle this game because of how difficult some of the latter parts of the game are and look. It throws all sorts of crap at you at once and expects you to see it all and dodge it all while moving precisely from ledge to ledge, collecting what you need to move on. And from the perspective of a viewer, it seems like it can get pretty overwhelming. And when you first enter a room, that's sometimes the first feeling that washes over you, followed by despair, and then acceptance of your fate as you dive headfirst into the obstacles countless times. But because of the game's lack of randomness, the completely predictable nature of everything that moves, the way that everything stays the same from death to death, and the sheer speed in which you can try and try again, it becomes fun to throw yourself headfirst into death hundreds of times. You slowly start to figure out what works, what doesn't, what's risky, what's safe, and you map a path through the room that will hopefully and eventually carry you to the next. And there are tons of rooms. And most of the game is interconnected in a way that I wasn't really expecting from a game like this. It's still linear, don't get me wrong, but once you start digging deeper and uncovering the many secrets that the game has to offer, the game starts to feel less like individual levels and challenges and more like an actual world. It shows that an extra layer of thought was put into the level design, and it's always appreciated to see those nice little touches. Like any game with Edmund's name on it, the End Is Nigh hides a bit more under the surface than you initially expect or see. Think you beat the game? Guess again, sucker! Also, like Edmund's games, it's difficult, disturbing, dark, and full of humor and a ton of fun. If you're a fan of difficult platformers with tight controls, I cannot recommend this game enough. I truly had a hard time putting it down and relished the challenges it threw at me, so if you're a fan of hard platformers and enjoyed Super Meat Boy at all, definitely pick this one up. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and thanks to my supporters on Patreon for believing in what I do, especially Mig, Aeldis, and Vati Plays. If you liked the video, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you hated it, hit that thumbs down button. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at ingeniousclown and hit that subscribe button for more awesome gaming content here in the future, and I will see you next time.